Flow into my life, girl, you looking right. Oh, I'm down with you. I like to spend some time, it's true. Oh, I'm down with you. I like to spend some time, it's true. Yeah, I'm down with you. Won't you come down with me? Open up your eyes, look into the sky. Do you ever wonder why we die? 'Cause I do, and I don't know what it's like to walk on through, and I don't know what it's like to walk on through. Open up your eyes, look into the sky. Do you ever wonder why we die? 'Cause I do, and I don't know what it's like.
Yo, yo. Welcome to the chat. Okay, this sounds good. I think we're good. Alright, cool. Hope you all... Oh yeah, I probably should turn this light on, huh? Hope you all are having a fantastic Saturday. And today, as you can see by the... Yeah, cool, the title is up there. We're going to do some really basic coding stuff. Setup. I was kind of helping a friend and colleague because she wants to learn Python and just other coding stuff, and I realized there was a lot of stuff that I already know because I've been studying Python and, well, actually Java more, but many languages for a long time. And not that by any means I'm an expert. I don't do coding for work. I really wish I did. But yeah, but there's a lot that even me at my very non-advanced level that I know that she doesn't, and I figured if there's anybody else out there that was having some struggles, because there's some really basic setup stuff and other things that just kind of get confusing. I am doing it in this virtual machine, Windows 10. I might do another one on Mac, maybe even if there's enough time today. But we're just gonna start from the very, very beginning. So, and I'll write this stuff in the chat too, so you don't have to Google search it. But if you're on your Windows computer, also if you're on a Mac, you download it from the same website. You just click the download button. But as you can see there, you just go to python.org/downloads. Did I write that correctly? Yes, I did. Okay, so that link there in the description. And you just click that, brings you to this website here. And then you download Python. I already did that, and I installed it too, and I'll show you what that looks like. Wow, I totally forget where. Okay, anyways, so it's in my downloads folder, right? And then I go ahead and this is another part of what we're looking at. Oops. This is the problem with working with virtual machines. I guess I can just open the file explorer this way. Normally I do Windows E, which is a hotkey for opening up the file explorer on Windows 10 and Windows 11. I don't know if it works for Windows 7. It's been a while since I used Windows 7. But yeah, so you download Python 3.11 in this case, and then it's in your downloads. You open it, you run it, and I'll show you what those prompts look like. So, because I already installed it, I just didn't want it to take too much time. And also, feel free to ask any questions in the chat, or if you're watching this on YouTube, because I upload my stuff to YouTube, then put a comment in there. I try to get back as soon as I can. So you come to this screen, and I usually just go with the top one. It's easier in my opinion. If you know more about it, which I'm assuming you don't, and that's why you're watching this, but if you do, then you might do the custom installation. And since I'm doing this in the VM, I really don't care. This is the path it's going to go to, so it's going to be in C. I'll touch on this a little bit. So in Windows, C is the root directory. In Mac, it's denoted by a forward slash. And you might notice that Windows has a backward slash, also known as a whack, where Unix and Linux, they have a forward slash. You better step back. Forward. I think it's flipped. But anyways, you get what I'm saying, right? This backward slash here, this is a Windows thing. The forward slash is a Unix, that's Mac, Apple, and Linux also use the forward slash. Different ways to do the same thing. This is the top of, this is the root. C is the root. Default, and also it's saying what drive you're on. So if you were on a different drive letter, like D or E or whatever letter, doesn't matter, A, it would show up there, and you can see that here. If I go this PC, you can see there's two drives here. I really forgot what this was. I think I attached this is just an installation. I don't even need that. I'm just gonna eject that. Anyways, so and then it's just gonna say hello to the chat. Oh, it is? Okay, I'll turn it down. Thank you, Lone. Where am I at here? Oh my god. Okay. Turn that down a bit. Appreciate you letting me know, Lone. Still sound bad? Yeah, it's probably. I'll turn it down more. There we go. Okay. Thank you. Much appreciated, sir. Okay, so yeah, as you can see, this is the drive that I'm in here, and that's why it shows there. Like if you're doing it from a different drive, it would show you that drive, but that's the root. And then you have these different folders, also known as directories, that contain other folders. So you have your users folder, which has your different users folders inside of them. My account name is admin, and so I'm in that one. And then there's this other folder called app data, local, programs in there, and the slashes, that means that it's descending, you know, like that's inside of that, which is here. Actually, we'll traverse that. So if I go into C, and then I go into users, so you can see that I'm going through it here in the file explorer, and you can see we're going to, so now admin, then app data. Now you can see it's kind of translucent here. Normally you wouldn't be able to see this, so you'd either have to type it in here with a slash, just like you see it there, app data. Alright, we'll just do that. But what I've done is I have my view set to show hidden items, and that is why that shows up, and why it shows as translucent. I'll go back to it here. As you can see, normal folders are like this. If it's hidden, it'll show up like this on Windows. And so we're gonna go in there, and we're just gonna traverse this directory. That's the technical term for what we're doing here. We're gonna go into local, we're gonna go into programs down here, and like I said before, you can literally type this in manually, but I figure the visual aid will kind of help. So now there's a folder called Python. It's the only folder in there, only directory, folder, same thing, different terms, and then Python 3. So that's where this is getting installed, and that's what it's telling you. So I already installed it. I'm like, this is just a picture I took so that you guys could see. Then it asks you another bit of information, and this is what you'll see once it's installed. It'll be this full path here, right? Let's go back up. So, you know, see blah 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 all the way to programs, which has this Python folder in it, which has this Python 3.11. It's just you can't really put a period. Well, you can put periods in names like this, but we just don't do that. And so this is what it'll look like once it's installed. And let me grab, okay, and then there's this other bit here. I read up on it. I don't really know how much this matters. I guess it has to do with pathing. I did disable this so that it doesn't have a max length. So, and this is one of the reasons I'm not too keen on Python, just because sometimes the whole pathing thing can be weird. But it's a really good starting programming language for sure. So once you've installed it, you can minimize this. I'm just going to close this window, and I have this. This is the command prompt. So let's actually get into there. So I normally just type CMD down here and type here to search, and then you can press enter if it's selected like that, which it is in this case. And then it would open up a window. Now for demonstration purposes, I'm going to keep this one up because I changed the variable path, and I'm going to show you how to do that too. I know I'm saying a lot of things, slow me down if something's confusing, but what I mean by pathing, and there's a few different things. So there's the directory paths that I just showed you for where Python's being installed, but then there's also this thing called environmental variables. And having the path set up in a certain way so that your computer knows to use certain programs. Like, okay, there's this thing called pip. I always forget what it stands for. If I do this, it doesn't recognize it. It should recognize Python, yeah. So as you can see, it's like taking a sec. Okay, now it's trying to open it from here. Let me try Python 3. Or actually, let's try... let's try this. Okay, so it's also having issues here too, which means I'm gonna have to add it to the path. Not gonna do that just right now. So what's happening is the environmental variable isn't showing where it's at. Make sure that I'm like not okay. Cool. So back up again here. So I'm gonna go down to type here to search. Oh my god. And then type environmental. Yeah, I should probably just leave that up for a sec so we can all read that. Edit system environment variables. When you can see that it's inside of control panel, so you could just go to control panel and find this. I just find this way easier to just type in env, and then it's like the only thing like that. And it just pops me open right here to advanced, the advanced tab, and this is the one that I want to go into, environmental variables. That's what I'm going to change. I'm going to change that here in path. So under system variables, path, I select that, I press edit, and you'll have all of these down to here. This is the one that I added, and you can even see it's the same path, right? I'm going to add another path too, because as you saw, the Python thing wasn't working, and I didn't add that before. So after you add the path, so let's say I've added the path, so I hit new, and then I literally just paste in the path, right? That's what I did, and then I saved it, or I didn't even save it, I just pressed OK, right? I'm going to delete that for a sec here, and then it creates this. You press OK, all right, you press OK, and then you press apply. I believe it's not grayed out because it's a new setting, right? In this case, nothing changed. And you could try, so like I did that to get to pip, and let's take a look at that. So pip is this installer module. It's kind of like the App Store. Pip is sort of like the App Store in that it allows you to access programs, for lack of a better word. It's really modules that you're accessing in the case of Python, but it's an installer for Python, for installing modules and libraries. Those are things that you will get familiar with, but essentially what they are other programs that other people have written to make it easier. Oftentimes they can be called frameworks, and when I say make it easier, I mean make programming easier. So it's kind of like not having to reinvent the wheel, because you could do that. I mean, you could literally build everything from scratch, but I mean that would take a long time and a lot of knowledge. So you use other people's modules that have been vetted and work well, and there's tons of Stack Overflow and even just official documentation on these things. A lot of these modules, in fact pretty much all of them, well, I shouldn't say all of them, but many of them are made by the maintainers of Python. Then there's things like pandas. That's for working with Excel sheets, CSVs. CSV is just comma separated values, which an Excel document is basically. I think that's maintained by another entity that's not Python. I think it's just an entity called pandas. I'm not entirely sure. But this is the path to it. So I copy the path. As you can see, I can just select that, and then I can just Control C. So using hotkeys is very important. You definitely, I prefer Java, to be honest. Wonkagellin, Python's cool, and I'm doing this one just because I have a friend who she wanted to learn Python, and so I was like, oh, you know what, there's a lot of things that just kind of get left by the wayside, or I mean, not left by the wayside, but like that can be confusing at the beginning, and just setting things up, getting a good feel for where you're at. Python's fine. I just find sometimes it gets a little confusing, and like writing the programs is pretty straightforward. I like the way that it's easy to read and write for the most part, but then sometimes like getting modules and then making sure that your environment variables and your pathing is set correctly. It's a little different on Mac, but they're both just confusing that way, and I find that Java can just be a little bit more straightforward. Might be harder to get a feel for how to program in it, but once you get that down, it's not as difficult. Yeah, but Python's fine. Python's cool. It's great for doing really quick scripting stuff, and also for writing full programs as well. So I'm gonna go back one, and then yeah, so here's the exe. So I'm gonna also add this. This should fix the issue that I am trying to fix. So I'm gonna go back to environmental variables, go back to path. This could also not work. We'll find out in a second here. I'm gonna paste that, and as you can see, it's the directory path. I'm not actually looking directly at the file. I think you can do that, but I'm not. Okay, so it doesn't even say apply, which is interesting. So I guess that's probably for a different thing. But I'm just going to make sure that it stayed. Okay, so it's still there. Great. I'm going to press OK. Now, it's still going to be confused. It's going to open up this. Okay. But now I'm going to have to open up a new window. There's another way to do this. By like basically refreshing this environment, but I don't know how to do it on Windows, and I'm not going to try. You can just get around that by opening up a new window. It's like a new refreshed environment or whatever. So if I do pip, now you can see that instead of just saying, what was it saying? It was saying pip is not recognized. Now it's saying all this stuff, which is just, it's the same as, okay, let me back up here. This is an explanation of how to use pip. Usage, right? A lot of times if you do a command without any arguments, it'll do that unless the command is all you need. And another way to get this would just be to do /? Like this, and then enter, and it'll give you the same output. Okay, well, not in the case of pip. In the case of things like echo, it should though. Okay, yeah. So pip is a little different. I wonder if you need like, well, it doesn't matter. I think that's just because it's made with Python, so it just, okay, so in this case, to show help commands, you do help. So it should just be pip, and then the argument, which is help, and it should, yeah, it's going to populate the same stuff. Now what I want to do is I want to install a package, which is going to be virtual environment, so virtual env, oops, I type install virtual env. Okay, so I'm going to install this, and it's going to go ahead and, cool. So this is what it looks like when it's installing, and hopefully the installation goes without a hitch. Virtual env, virtual environment is really useful. Okay, so it looks, yeah, it looks like it installed successfully, and this is where these, I think these are dependencies that it installed as well as the actual package itself, and it's giving me some suggestions. It's saying that the version of pip I am is 22.3, and the latest one is 22.3.1, which I could upgrade to. I'm not going to do that right now, and this is just saying how to do that. So oops, this is literally, I would just copy this, and then I would run it just like I ran that other command right up here, and that would make that work. So now I have virtual environment ready, and I can run it. Now, like I was saying, the reason that I'd want to use it is because the way that different versions of Python work, especially on Macs, but just the way they work, it's better to have a virtual environment where you install everything, because otherwise it's going to install it globally on your entire system. Which can, and I know some people hate Macs. I don't hate Macs. I like Linux, I like Mac, and I like Windows. I like all of them. I just think it's good to know different OSs. But Macs can be really difficult with Python, especially if you don't use virtual environments. So if you're doing it on a Mac, you need to use virtual environments, in my opinion. I'm pretty sure you can break a lot of stuff because there's dependencies within Mac that use Python, like system level dependencies the operating system relies on. And what's cool about the virtual environment is it allows you, it's not like a virtual machine exactly, it basically lets you put, it's like it simulates the path of an operating system. So just like, I think, okay, that doesn't work. I'm gonna clear this window out here, and just like this is the whole path to where I'm at right now. Here I'm in this folder called admin, which is the user folder. You can make these fake or like sequestered paths that are these virtual environments, and you can install applications to them as if they are an actual OS, sort of, in a way. It'll become more apparent when we work with it, and I think I'm just not explaining it very well. But so that's one of the things you want. Now let's take a look and see if Python. Okay, cool. So this is what you'd normally see. So good. I'm glad that it worked out how I didn't prep that part beforehand. So if you're doing it on Windows 10, that's the one I'm doing it on. It should work fine on Windows 11, and I think it would be the same for Windows 7. It's been a while since I've used Windows 7, so I don't remember how the environmental variables work. But for sure, Windows 10 and 11. You open up environmental variables, so you just search for env. This edit system environment variables, which you can also find in the control panel right here, right? You go to path. Under system variables, you go to path, and you click edit. And then you go, well, I mean, you don't have to go to the bottom. You just hit new, and it'll open a thing for, you know, the cursor will be here, and you just paste in the path. I'm not going to do that because I already have those paths. I have the one to script, which in Python 3.11, scripts contains pip, which is the installer for Python, which you need to install things like virtual environment. There are other ways to do it, but that's the best practice to use pip. And then this is the path, which is just one. It's the parent directory. It's one directory up, and that's Python 3.11 that has Python itself in it. And because I have that in there, I'm now in Python. So and that's what these three little dots mean, or carets, whatever, greater than or equal to. Now if I want to get out of here, I can do exit. This is one way to do it. I mean, you can also, I think you do Control D or Control D, I'm pretty sure. But that's the proper way to cleanly exit it. Now if I want to see what version I'm on, I can do Python. It's either capital. Okay, yeah, it's capital V. What is lowercase v? Okay, I don't even know what that did. Let's see. Okay, Control D is not working. Control C is not working. All right. Well, anyways, so cleanly exit it. Yeah, I did something really weird there. Let's see if I can. Okay, it'll tell me right here. Verbose trace. So lowercase v does this. Traces import statements. Interesting. Well, that's not really important. What I want us to focus on is how to check your Python version. And this is important because it'll show you like what version your computer thinks you're working with, which you need to know, especially if you hit certain errors and you're like, well, I already have this installed. This is Python 3, and I know these modules exist and they work on Python 3. Your computer might actually be looking at Python 2, or maybe an earlier iteration of Python 3, and so that'll cause these kinds of issues. So it's important to be able to know from the command prompt, if you're running it from the command prompt, what version you're on. Now, if you're using idle, so that's this. Idle is an IDE. I can't remember what idle stands for, but I will tell you what an IDE is, and it can be a little confusing at first because they're just one letter difference, right? An IDE is a integrated development environment, and that's what you use to program typically. I mean, you can use a text document, and I'll show you that too. But we're gonna open up this IDE called idle, and as you can see, it looks a lot like the console here. When I type in Python, it gives me the same look, right? And that's because they're the same. They are the same. This is command prompt. Looking at it, command prompt is a native Windows shell, and idle is a Python shell. But these are the same. I mean, literally, it's the same exact text output right here. You know, it tells you all the same stuff, and then you have this three little carets, and that's because it does the same thing. So let's do some really basic stuff with Python right now before we set up the virtual environment or anything like that. So say I want to calculate two numbers added together. I can do 10 plus 2, and it'll give me the output of 12. And that's cool. So, and as you can see, I'm pressing enter, and that just like makes new. It goes lower down. And there should be, yeah, there's not a way to do that. So in, I wonder if I just type help. Okay, help clear. Okay, that doesn't work. Oh no, I don't want to do that either. There's a way. So there's a way to clear out the window to make it look clean again. As in, like, see how there's all this text here? Maybe I want to have the text start at the top. There's a way to do that on here if you're not inside of Python. But I'm not familiar with how to do it. That's not too important right now. So we did 10 plus 2, right? That's 12. Okay, now when you're writing programs, you're not just doing things like that. Or like, here's another one. Hello, and then plus, let's do it like this for demonstration, because this is kind of what I was showing her. Hello world, and now you can see it's 2 words, but there's no spaces in between. Now if you want to have spaces in between, which you probably would if you're writing a sentence, let's copy this, paste it down here. You would have to have a space somewhere, and that's really one of those things that can be a little confusing at first, because you're like, well, these are 2 different words. Why is there not a space here? It's because you're not telling the computer that there should be a space there. So as you can see right here, I've added this space. Now when I do it again, it'll be separated by a space. It doesn't matter which side you do it on. It really doesn't, you know. I can do it on this side. They can both have spaces, and you'll see if I do that, there's 2 spaces now, right? I mean, it seems pretty simple, but it's one of those things that you just, you know, unless you work with stuff like this, you're not gonna know. Now, let's see what else was. Okay, I'll go through the assignment that I was like giving her basically. We'll start with, so these are 2 different views. Now say I want to write the program. What's good about IDEs is they show you things. So I just hit Control N. I think there's, okay, if you want to get to that without doing that, you should always use hotkeys, but new file. And as you can see, it tells you what the hotkey is to get there, Control N. And it says untitled, just like any new document would, right? And we can do the same stuff that we did here, but this time I'm going to use a thing called a variable. So I'm going to say add 2. We'll call the variable add 2. And we're going to add 2 numbers. Oops. And that's what that's going to be equal to. And then we're going to do another one called hello. Now, as you can see, I'm just kind of naming these variables willy-nilly, and they are just, you know, they're variables. If you remember algebra, it is the same concept. Just like x can contain the number 2 or 5 or whatever, so can a variable. They are the same thing. A variable in programming is an algebraic variable, essentially. And I mean, even if you look at it, it technically is, because it's all numbers. That's how computers compute, with numbers. So if I want to do this, and let me just be super lazy about it, I'm just going to copy this, Control C. Now hotkeys are important. This is another thing that I was showing them. I mean, not everyone is super computer literate, and that's fine, but it's really good to get used to using hotkeys. It makes your work life, whatever you're doing, much faster. Even if you're not doing computer science stuff, if you're not an IT person, knowing hotkeys will save you tons of time, and you know, you're not clicking and this and that, and like, you just have a lot more availability for your time, essentially. So I've assigned this variable. Let me make sure that the sound's not too loud. It sounds, it could be a little bit, okay. So add 2 is one variable that has these 2 numbers in it, added together as a function, and then hello is another variable of a different kind. I mean, and you can probably tell that just by seeing, okay, there's no quotes around this, and when there's quotes around this, and I apologize, I'm colorblind, I think this is green. I'm pretty sure that's green, but it changes color, and that's what's nice about IDEs, is they help you with these kind of color hints to tell you, in this case, the difference between data types. So this, pretty sure, is not changing any colors. I think it's just black, like everything else, like the variables are. and that just means they're integers. You don't need to really know too much about what that means, but an integer is a kind of number, and in this case, it's a specific kind of number. It's a whole number. So I know I'm kind of going all over the place, but like 10.2 or 10.5 or 5, those are not whole numbers. Those are not integers. An integer and a whole number is 10. 10. There's no decimal. That's not a whole number. That is actually, so whole number, not a whole number, just because of these two characters here that are attached to it. So this is what makes a whole number. A whole number, and these are called floats or doubles. That's not important right now. But what you need to know is that they're numbers. These are numbers, and this is just like any other mathematical equation. You're just adding two numbers. That's why it's called add two. I mean, you could call it anything. I could call this x. Oops. Okay. I could call this x. It really doesn't matter. I'm just calling it add two so that I know what the variable contains. Two numbers added. So I'm going to save this document. I'm going to call it Hello World, just because that is what pretty much everyone's first program is called. Typically, Hello World isn't this, but I'll show you what it usually is. Hello World is just a way to print out an output to the console. So normally, a Hello World program is like this. Very straightforward, especially in Python. So you wouldn't even have any of this stuff here. It would just be this. Hello World. For Python, it would just be this. For Java, it would be a little bit different. But so I'm gonna save this, and to run it, you can hit run, but also it should be F5. Let me just see if that works. Cool. So F5 does it. If you have a laptop, there is probably an FN key in the bottom left usually, and you'd have to hold that down, kind of like a shift key, to activate the F5. Okay, so like, let me make that more clear. Like, let's see. So semicolon and colon, right? If you just tap the semicolon and colon key, you're gonna get the semicolon. If you hold the shift key and and then you hit the semicolon colon key, you're gonna get the colon, because that's the one on top. So just like that with a laptop, I'm looking at my laptop over here. If I hold FN and I hit F5, I'll activate the F5 key, which is above. Oh, it's not really. It's right next to the keyboard light key. So if I don't have the F5 key held down, like Shift key, then the keyboard will dim, and vice versa, right? A little bit of a side tangent, but these are all things that I was kind of assisting her with, so I just thought it might be relevant if you're a newbie. All good things to know, all things that can be really confusing at first when you're learning all this stuff, because a lot of it's just assumed knowledge. So, Hello World, we've just done our first Hello World. It is just this line right here, just one line. Now, let's get a little bit more complicated with this, and then we'll go into virtual environments. So I've already created two variables up here, add to and hello. How about we just try using this variable? Now, as you can see, I don't have quotations around it like I did before. So actually, let's even get some context here. Print hello. Okay. So this is the one that we just ran. Now, if I have both of these, you'll see something interesting. And I'll just do that. So both of these will run. Print. The command is print. The argument being passed inside of these parentheses is hello, and then also hello world. So you have a variable and then just this string. There's no pluses here, and I should slow down here as well. So a string, this is another data type. A string allows you to put anything in there, any character. Doesn't matter what the character is. Anything you can type with a keyboard, you can put inside of the quotation marks, and that is a string data type. Data types are important to know. So integers are data types. 10 is an integer, a data type of integer. 2 is a data type of integer. And then anything inside of quotations, like this here, that is a string data type. This is also a string data type. And then this plus sign right here, plus sign here, this is called an operator. And also, you probably were wondering about the equal sign. I mean, it is a bit self-explanatory, but it can be confusing. So just like with a regular mathematical variable, so x plus y equals z. Okay, so x equals 1, y equals 2. And then I'm sure you can extrapolate out what z would equal, right? So, because you're adding these two things. This is just like any other variable in math. X plus y equals z. Okay, so you have the name of the variable, add 2 in this case, or x in this case, and then the assignment with a single equal sign. And that'll become more important down the road. Single versus double equal signs, they mean different things. The single equal sign is assigning value into the variable. So this variable is assigned with this equal sign the value of 10 plus 2. Snake case. Yeah, I know. I like to use camel case and what do you call it? Pascal case, because I'm a Java user. But you're right. Typically in Python you do use, I didn't know it was called snake case, but thank you, Clasher Casten. I appreciate that. Yeah. So to your point, in Python the convention is to use this thing that I didn't know was called snake case. So it just means you're using an underscore, and it's important to understand this. So when you make a variable, like, okay, this is not a variable. There's a space here. Spaces are a very special character. They are still a character technically, and you can even see that happening right here. That's a character that's being counted by the computer. This is a character. Space is a character, and it has some interesting effects. This will error out, I'm pretty sure. We could try running it to see, but I'm fairly certain that it'll just error out. So there cannot be any spaces, and there's other characters that you also can't assign to variables. I think slashes are one of those. Maybe if you had the slash inside like that, but anyways, it all has to be connected without any spaces to be a variable. And as you can see, it can be a single character. That's totally fine. So to print out this, so let's just run this and see what happens. So, oops. What is it telling me? Cannot assign. Oh, yeah. Okay, I did this backwards though. So I knew something looked a little weird there. It'd have to be z equals that. So that'll work. And as you can see, we have both our things print out. The lowercase one is the one that's assigned into this variable, and the uppercase one is the one that we did down here. There's no variable. It's just the function, the command, the function print, and then the argument, or the parameter, argument parameter, hello world, this string. So let's comment this out. Now in Python, to do a single line comment, what is a comment? But okay, to do a single line comment, you use a hashtag or pound symbol if you're old school like me. And as you can see, it changes the colors here to red. I think that's red. And that means that the computer is not going to really look at that. It's not going to use it programmatically, and it's only for us to read visually. And so you can use it, one, to take notes to yourself, your future self, to kind of explain what the program's doing, and we're going to do that in a sec, and also to just temporarily stop something from executing. So this is no longer going to execute, and we'll see that. So I saved it. Always save after you make an edit. if you want it to run at least. I'm going to run it again, F5, and you can see only the top one is running. It's printing out that variable. So let's go ahead and just make some comments here. So add to, maybe we'll even just make it exactly holds I guess the output, this is a better word for that, output of 10 plus 2, which is 12. And then we can do another one below it with one-liners, or we could do a two-liner. So I'm just going to delete that, and I believe it's 1, 2, 3. It should be single quotes. Yeah, okay. You might be able to do it with double quotes too. I'm not really sure. But as you can see, it shows up kind of like a string does, the same color, but it's not. It's not going to be red. Otherwise, it would error out. If I just wrote this without commenting it in this way, it would error out, and it would tell you. And errors are important to read, and it's good to know how to read them. And we can mess with that, so we can look at errors that we might have. In fact, after this, we'll go into that. So 10 and 2 are integers, which is a type of number. 10.2, let's make this less confusing. 10.4 or 10 to 4.5 are not integers. They are floats or doubles. Cool. So now if I run this again, it's still gonna just print out hello world, which is this, and it's not gonna give us any errors. Now I'm gonna do this. That probably will give us an error. Let's see if it, okay, so unterminated triple quoted string literal detected at line 16. And hopefully, I think there's a way to show line numbers good. Okay. I don't think you can do this on Macs, which is super lame. But it's telling us, so we'll run that again. We can see it in context. So line 16 is unterminated. So it's like, it reads all the way down to here. And it's like, there should be these here. There's not, and it's getting confused. Now, errors don't always come there. Most of the time, you'll have them spit out here, and we'll see that in a second when we try to add two things. So I'm going to do it inside of, actually, you know what? We'll just call it new variable, new var. We'll do it the correct way here. So new var, oops, is equal to hello plus add to. Now you might be thinking to yourself, well, you can't add two numbers, but then you also might be confused because, like, okay, we added, or you can't add a number and a word, right? I mean, it's not, there's no math that gives you an output, and that's true. What I'm trying to do is called concatenation. It's not going to work, and we'll fix that, but first let's look at the error that it spits out. And we also want to print it out. So we're going to, instead of printing out hello, which we have been doing this whole time, we're going to just print out new var. Doesn't matter what you call it, I'm just calling it that. And it's going to give us an error. And okay, good, it shows up here. And it's telling us, so trace back, it's tracing back and going through it, and this happens when you have an error. It says file, this file, and you can see that it even uses the same kind of quote. This is a string, and it's saying this string, which has the value of this path, and it is a file. I think it's even using Python to do this, to be honest, because pretty sure file is a data type in Python. I know it is in Java, but this file here, hello world.py, which we can change to snakecase too, because you should do that, honestly. Like if you're doing Java, you're gonna want to do this is Pascal or camel case. I always mix those two up, but you do want to do it in the convention of the language you're using. Otherwise, people could get a little confused. But this path, just like we were talking about earlier, goes from the top level, the root, which is the drive, the C drive. Then you have the user's directory, then the admin directory, that's the user that we're in. You know, whatever your username is, maybe it's Bob or Alice, right? Shamir, Jake, I don't know. Whatever your username is, guest, user, I don't know. I'm just calling it admin. And then you go into the desktop, that's another directory. And then you get to the file. The file is the one that we have saved here. And you can even see the path up here, which is really nice. And then the name of the file. And it's saying on line 15 of this file, there is there's an error. It's a type error. Okay, so it's telling us the kind of error it is, which is great. It doesn't always give you explicitly what the error is, but it's saying, okay, line 15, there's this thing that you're doing right here. Line 15. New var equals hello plus add to, right? And it's saying this is wrong. It's a type error. It's giving you this doesn't work, and it even tells you explicitly what's wrong. It could be confusing for someone who's not familiar with this. And it's saying type error can only concatenate str. That means string. Can only concatenate string, not int, which is short for integer. So str is short for string. That's this type of data with the quotations around it. Not to be confused with the comment here. I know it can be a little confusing. But this string, these are string data types. Yeah, can only concatenate string, not integer, to string. So you can only concatenate a string to a string. You cannot concatenate an int to a string. And I think it's called casting in Python. I can't remember. But what we're going to do is what I'm calling casting this integer type data, this data type of integer into a string type data. Oops. And it's very similar to print here. So you have a command, or function rather. It's a function. That's what it's called for Python. Function called str, which is of the data type. And I think all the data types in Python have this, unless it's because you're going from primitive data type. Integer is a primitive data type to a wow, it's a string data type. I can't remember. It's a more complex data type. And what it's doing here is saying, okay, I want whatever's inside of these parentheses to be a string. So it's almost as if what you're doing is you're saying, okay, so add 2 has the value. It is literally equal to this number. And if you do this, what's going to happen is you're actually just going to reassign it to this number, because it's going to get whatever you have last. If you have the same variable name called multiple times, it will just assign whatever you assigned it last to that variable. And since it's not a strictly typed, I believe Python's not strictly typed, and that's why you don't have to call out the data type. This is why Java and Python are way different. It wouldn't matter. So I could reassign add 2. I'm pretty sure I could do this. Add 2 to equal 12. And that's essentially what we're doing when we're doing this. We're assigning to this. So let's actually try a couple things here. We're going to print out add 2. So add 2 is going to come, it's going to get printed out first. So this variable, which is going to be this, is going to get printed out. And then this is going to get printed out. And stop me if I'm like being confusing or anything like that. But as you can see, so print add 2, line 12 here. That's interesting. Line 12, we're printing out 12. It prints it out. And then hello world and then 12 are added together. There's no more of this error because I've casted the integer into a string. And I've done the same thing up here. And if we do, and this can be useful when you're troubleshooting stuff. I think it's type pretty sure if you use type, it'll tell me. Okay, cool. So it tells me that the class, because yeah, it's a class, and I think it would be a different type. I don't think it would be a class for integer. Let's see that in a sec though. So what did I do here? I used another command called type. Type allows you to see the type of data that something is. And like I said, it can be very useful if you're trying to understand what data type you have. So I'm going to do it here. So right after this command, we're going to, and I'm just putting spaces there for visibility. You can not have spaces there. It doesn't really matter. And I'm going to delete this one because, like I said, these are essentially these are exactly the same things. Like this is what it is because you're doing this math right here. You're adding these numbers. This thing becomes equal to that. So first we'll get the data type of it up here when it's an integer, and then when it's not an integer. So let's see what that looks like. And as you can see, first, so it's saying the class is int. It's of type int when it's here, but then when I reassign it to this just 12 inside of quotations, which anything inside of quotes, doesn't matter if it's numbers, doesn't matter if it's periods or anything. There are special characters that you'll have to deal with. Trying to think of a special character, like slashes can be a special character. Let's see if we can even do that. So if I do /n, it should give another space down if I print it out. And again, everything is an object. Okay, that's basically like Java then. But yeah, so the data types can be called out. Oops, I gotta actually do F5 in here, huh? So that didn't do what I thought it was gonna do. Maybe it's the other slash. Maybe it just doesn't actually. Okay, so it does work. So /n, that's for new line or carriage return. Actually, I think /r is carriage return. But as you can see, it puts an extra line there, and if I take that away, it will not have that extra line, right? Different. But the main thing I'm just trying to demonstrate here is that you can look. Yes, thank you, Clasher. Yeah, so like you have the ability to see what data type you're using, and that can be helpful if you're troubleshooting something and it's confusing to why the data types aren't working together. And a lot of times, I mean, you can just read there's a type error and it should tell you what the type error is and you should be good. Oh man. Okay, well, there's only 5 minutes. Let's see. We could get into virtual environments, but I think I'm just gonna call it here for now. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, or if you're seeing this on YouTube, just put them there. And yeah, hope that you have a great day, and thanks for being here. The next stream is just gonna be me playing StarCraft 2. All right, peace out.